committee that prepared this bipartisan two-committee report with the Homeland Security Committee. Thank you so much, Senator, for joining us today. U.S. Capitol Police issued a statement this morning insisting, quote, that it looked at intelligence from every federal agency and that at no point prior to the 6th did it receive actionable intelligence about a large-scale attack. But your report does fault the Capitol Police with not acting on warnings that they had and not sharing critical information regarding threats of violence, close quote, with the officers themselves who were on the front lines. And the Capitol Police leadership failed to provide the officers with, quote, effective protective equipment or training. In one case, in fact, the equipment was locked in a bus that was not accessible. Can you talk about those findings?
Thanks, Andrea. And this was a bipartisan report from beginning to end with Senator Blunt, Portman, and Senator Gary Peters. And what we focused on here was Capitol security and that breakdown of intelligence. First of all, the Capitol Police leadership has 3 different units of intelligence that had actually conflicting advice. One said it was a remote possibility. Others received information from the FBI that didn't get up to leadership. The FBI and Homeland Security also should have done a better job at getting clear intelligence, which they now acknowledge they should have caught on social media. For instance, pictures of the tunnels under the Capitol. And then finally, the Department of the Defense took too long to get the troops to the Capitol. And of course, they should have been ordered earlier by the Chief of Police. Multiple failures, but I think the one thing that united us was, let's not just talk about the failures, let's talk about the recommendations and how we fix this going forward.
Well, in your report, one Capitol Police officer does say he was horrified that no deputy chief or above was on the radio or helping us. For hours, the screams on the radio were horrific. The sights were unimaginable. This is a quote from the report. And there was a complete loss of control. So let's talk about that, the leadership being missing in action.
Yes, in fact, 2 of them were on the front lines because there weren't enough people on the front lines, and they just didn't have a preparation plan of what to do in an unbelievable incident like this where the Capitol had been breached. And of course, there should have been plans about who's on the radio, who's on the front line, and it just wasn't there. There was one haunting report of the words from a line officer over the radio, does anybody have a plan? And so that is what we're left with, more contingency plans. Senator Blunt and I are committed to immediately pass legislation to give the next police chief the authority to call in the National Guard, not just before, which should have happened, but also on his or her own without having to go through layers of a bureaucracy and make phone calls in the middle of an insurrection. Sadly, the way the law is now, that was the case.
And in fact, we know from your reporting, from other reporting, from my own reporting, that the bipartisan leaders of the House and Senate were making desperate calls to the White House, calls to the Pentagon, and not getting the answers that they needed in the response. And so clearly missing is any answer about what President Trump was doing during this time.
So we have outlined here what is pretty much common knowledge in our report about President Trump's speech, about him encouraging his reporters to march down the mall to the Capitol, about the lead-in tweets to go wild, and the like. But one of the reasons I believe, Andrea, that we need a 9/11 type commission and a deeper investigation is we felt our jurisdiction and our goal was very clear. We wanted to get out some immediate recommendations to help with funding, to help with getting bills passed, and to change the policies in the police department and the like. But that whole side of it about the rise of white supremacism and what needs to be done, and doing this not just in the Senate, but the House and the Senate together, that's about a 9/11 type commission. And I sincerely believe this report is not a substitute in any way for that, but it's something we needed to do immediately.
What do you do about the fact that Mitch McConnell is already saying that this does it, that we don't need the other investigation? Chuck Schumer is still saying that he reserves the right to push forward for something, but right now the Republicans are opposing it.
We must keep pushing them. It's not over yet, right? The need for this report will go on for many, many years. The public saw with horror through the eyes of the impeachment hearing the videos and what happened. Individual committees, as Speaker Pelosi has said, will keep having hearings in both the House and the Senate, but again, not a replacement for one big report. I remember coming to the Senate and even years later implementing the 9/11 recommendation. So, you know, not all is lost because Mitch McConnell is trying to block this right now. I don't rule out it happening in the future.
What are your hopes for the kind of legislation that would be needed in order to get the National Guard away from DOD authority and get more control to the Capitol Police on the front lines?
The National Guard would still be under the Department of Defense as they are across the country, but the idea would be to have more scenarios and ready trained contingency plans and groups that would be able to come in and help. What our legislation would do would be to simply allow the new chief of police, and that person is being selected by the police board, to not have to go through the police board when there's an emergency situation and making phone calls and not having calls answered. Ridiculous situation. But the other piece of it is more training when it comes to the regional National Guards. Virginia, Maryland all did valiant jobs along with our line officers in the Capitol Police, but there hadn't been that kind of training and planning. The chief of staff to the head of the Army actually said in one of our many interviews that we did for this report, said, you know, this is not like a pickup game, this situation, where they just suddenly all come together and can do it. This was like the Super Bowl of domestic terrorism, and there should have been planning ahead.
Did your report reveal any deliberate effort to stall from the Pentagon or other civilian authorities reporting to the White House?
We were very clear in our report that we had a limited look at what happened here. We did not find that, but we found delays that should not have occurred. That doesn't mean that there wasn't something going on that we didn't focus on because of our jurisdiction and our decision to focus on the immediate. One, there will be more investigations going out of both committees, including the hearing Senator Blunt and I are having next week. And I know Gary Peters and Senator Portman are going to be doing the same. But at least three of us, and that includes Senator Portman, believes the best place to look at all of that would be with a 9/11 independent commission with subpoena authority that would be able to look at all of that and would be able to bring in witnesses which with more limited staff and a more limited jurisdiction, we could not do in this immediate time frame.
Senator Klobuchar, we're very grateful to you for coming on today and, you know, giving us the gist of your report, which is an extraordinary piece of work as far as it could go. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Andrea.